Hello and welcome back to the Blend Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Ruff, and today we're talking about something that may just help to transform how your business is seen by others. Now, for some garage owners, the idea of entering awards can feel like a bit of a distraction from the day-to-day challenges of running a busy workshop. But for others, awards are a powerful way to benchmark performance, motivate teams, and raise a profile both locally and nationally. Joining me on today's episode is someone who knows this journey inside out. Tim Benson of Oldfields Garage in Herefordshire is here to chat it over ahead of his talk on the topic at the Blend on Saturday the 18th of October. Tim, welcome back on to the Blend Podcast.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Tim, you're obviously widely known within this community for running a hugely successful multi-award winning independent garage, but for anyone that's new to the industry, can we start with just a brief background on your own journey and how awards have played a role in building your own reputation within the industry?
Yeah, so, Oldfields was started by mum and dad back in 1991. I'd never really had any aspirations early on to get involved in a family business at all. So this very much come as a later thing. My sort of first entry into the automotive industry, I suppose, was as a parts person, parts apprentice at the local VW dealer. So that's how I got my first role within automotive. And after there for about 3 years, I decided that I just wanted to go and do something different. So I went away and did a business HND and a business degree. And that's, my sort of journey up to, has been very much outside of automotive until I came back to Oldfields at 2008. And, different to many, I've never been a technician. It's the business side that's really had the interest for me, processes, systems, customer service, and ultimately marketing. And I think that's where awards have sort of piqued my interest, back in the early days. So our first award was in 2013 when we won Union Park Car Care Centre of the Year. That was very much the first bit. That's what got it started. But after we won that, I didn't really do anything for nearly 10 years. So it's awards were at the very first, within sort of 5 years of my journey in our family business. We won the first award, and we used that at the time to really build our reputation within the local community, and that's what we sort of did. And strangely, I don't really know why, we just decided that was it, and never did anything more until recently.
Getting around to entering that first award is a bit of a mental stumbling block for many, I think. So what prompted you to take that first step and enter that first award all those years ago?
Yeah, and the first, so back in 2013, I think the actual thing was that we were I was part of the Car Care Centre panel of garages, so I sort of got involved with that. Very different to how things operate now, but actually it was our local rep, for Unipart, who suggested, I think he probably put us forward actually, so we got entered by default and then had to do the stuff that goes behind it. But it's very different then, and didn't seem to be quite so many awards around at the time.
Yes, there are a lot of different awards out there now. We'll chat about that shortly, but I'd like to get your thoughts on what it means to be an award-winning garage. What difference does it actually make to the day-to-day business? Does it bring in more customers perhaps, or is it more of a team motivational thing?
When I think back to when we started looking at awards again, it was very much about, pitching ourselves against other people and seeing what they could, what they do and what we could do in comparison with it. In terms of the first award win, I think that does have an impact on customers, and it has a bigger impact on the staff and the team within the business. So in terms of day to day, does it change how we operate? Probably not too much, because I think you do a lot of work in the preparation for becoming, in the frame to use a pun, to carry on with sort of building the business. But, in terms of bringing more customers, I think it definitely makes people more aware, but that's only if you do something with it. So I think that's the one of the most critical things, is that when you get nominated or you win awards, you actually tell people, because if you don't tell people, it can't have a positive impact on customers.
Awards preparation is an interesting one. The preparation, it seems, should start long before even the entry process, I suppose. And it sounds like you're looking at what other great garage owners are doing and almost benchmarking yourself against them.
Yeah, and it definitely starts before that. We've got you have to think about your business. So you have to step back from what's going on in the day to day. Actually look at what you do, look at what you offer, look at how you operate, and look at how that appears to other people. But even more importantly, you need to look at what other people are doing, because there's so many good ideas in the industry. I think we're blessed now with the advantage that social media brings us. We all know that there's a lot of pitfalls that go with that, but what it does do is it really opens up the opportunity to communicate, to talk, to see what other people are doing, and to really sort of build your own thing based on what you see is going on around.
Now, your talk at the Blend is called How to Put Yourself in the Frame, 7 Steps to Make Your Garage Award Ready. What inspired you to put this session together?
I get asked by a lot of people, one of the things that I've done personally, and I know there's lots of other people in the podcast that you've done that have talked about this, it's building a network of people within the industry. You get to talk to lots of people, and you do that by putting yourself out there, and you do that by going to events and actually connecting. And one of the things, we've won 7 national awards since 2023, and another couple of local awards as well, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But it's, we get asked, I get asked, what is it? How did you do that? Why did you do that? And I think what I wanted to do is I wanted to show and demonstrate that I don't mean this that everyone can win awards, because, there is only one award winner for each category. However, everyone can do something with their business to put themselves in the frame for being in with a chance. And that's really what I wanted to sort of get across, is that there are things that you can do within your business. Sometimes it's major overhaul, sometimes it's tweaks. And it's, I just want to share what we've done. And that's been the platform that we've built on to go and build and put ourselves in the frame for winning those awards. Because ultimately, you can't win awards without entering. You've got to enter. I started looking at it and, just jumping back to what you asked a little bit before. So the process of award winning for me was back in 21. So in 21, I went with the team from Garage Hive to a top garage event, and we sat around the table, and I just sort of sat in a room with all these brilliant garages and, these brilliant people that had been nominated. And I observed and watched what was going on and how it all happened. And after that event, I set myself a little challenge that, within 3 years, I wanted to get to a national final and to win an award. We did it within that space of time, but it was, that's what I want to sort of share really, is how I did it. And it doesn't mean that I've got the only way. I'm not the only award winner. I've not won plenty of awards, as the recent IGA one will demonstrate. But it's I think you have to do things within your business to even be in with a shout, and that's what I want to try and share with people, that what you can do to your business to get yourself award ready, and then put yourself in with a chance of winning it.
Okay, so perhaps a slightly difficult question now, Tim. If you take the time and effort to put your award entry together, arrange to go to the award ceremony, but don't quite get that top tier recognition, how do you deal with that?
I'll be honest, I hate it, Mike. It's I think, moments like that are all about the raw emotion of that moment, isn't it? And it's that, you see it in sport, you see it in everything, the people who, when there's big national awards and there's people clapping around the room and you can see they hate it because it's on their face. So I think nothing is quite like winning an award. However, when you actually stop and reflect on what's happened, you've got yourself to a point where you're considered among the best few in that category to just get to the final. And that really, really should be celebrated. I know it's a bit of a cliche that people say, the real thing is to get to the award. I'm not going to say that nothing is better than winning that award. But the reflection and the opportunity it gives you to stand back and look at what what you've done, what you've achieved, how you've achieved that. And you've got to remember that there's a lot of good garages, and there is a lot of garages generally. There's a lot of good garages as well. And it's, you cannot win everything. I know that you go through waves. I mean, I think, we've probably been more successful in quite a lot in a short period of time. But I know that this can't go on forever, because it's not good for me. It's not good for the industry. And you become a little bit complacent with things, I'll share a little story about how it feels within the business. So we won our first award. Everyone was celebrating. Everyone was really, glad of that accolade. You win the second award, and it was, that was also good. And then you win the third award, and all of a sudden it becomes, this is normal. And it sort of it doesn't take the shine off winning it, but it does give you a different feeling. And, it's really important to sort of, work with all that. But I've also had, whilst we've won these awards over this period of time, I've also had, we've been in quite a lot of finals as well and not won those awards. So it's, you have got to take stock and think, actually, to get to a final takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of thinking. It takes a lot of development. You need to celebrate that. And it's like anything. When you can take the approach that you give up after you don't win one and you get fed up and you go and sulk, or you can say, well, actually, what have they done that's better, and what can we do to try and put ourselves back in the opportunity to win it? And it's quite interesting. I know this is completely unrelated to Garage, Mike, but my youngest put himself forward to go into the school council, and he, this is a really, it really cements what I'm talking about here. So he decided that he wanted to go into council. Never had any interest in doing things like that, and so I helped him to do. He wrote his ideas down and he wrote it, and I helped him to do a presentation. So he stood up in front of us and did a little presentation. He's 7 years old, and he went and he did his presentation. He said, "Oh yeah, so he practiced it. Another thing you need to do when you're doing these sort of things." He practiced his presentation. He went in and he stumbled on some of the words, and he came back and he said that, he was really disappointed that he didn't get to be in the council. And, I sat and I said to him, I talked about Garage Awards as part of that journey. So I said to him, look, you don't win them all. It's right to be disappointed because you really wanted to do it. However, you've got to stop and think, and you should be proud that you did it. And that sort of early message and early journey that he's been on, I died inside, to be honest, because it's like, the disappointment of him not doing it. And I suppose I did relate to the disappointment of not winning awards in some way. And it's that sort of thing. But it's, it is important that you take on, you've got to take the opportunity to enter. You've got to be there in the first place. You've got to get to the final. And, when you don't win, it is disappointing, but you can take two ways out of it. You can decide that, well, I'm giving up, I'm not doing this anymore. Or you can look at it and say, well, this is an opportunity to grow again. So that's what I tend to prefer to do.
Yeah, and with the likes of the Blend and some of the other conferences and events that are establishing themselves out there within the community now, the standard of independent garage is continually improving, which is fantastic for the industry. So it's always worth remembering that if you don't quite make the cut, you're up against some really amazing garage businesses.
Yeah, and just talking about the Blend, so we've not got a nomination at all for this year for the Blend. I'm not going to talk to you about that now, but I'm going to talk about that in the presentation. And that's, it's great to see all these garages that are coming to the fore, but I've got to decide whether I'm disappointed about not being in it, or do I look at why I'm not in it? And that's one of the things that I'm going to talk about during the presentation.
Yeah, that's interesting. We'll leave that as a teaser there, and we'll look forward to getting your thoughts on that at the Blend, and we'll move swiftly on for now. So do you think awards are just for the big, high-profile, well-established garages, or can smaller businesses realistically compete and win?
I think the way that they structure awards now with the different categories, that gives an opportunity for everyone. You do have to look at your own business, and you have to look at whether you're proud of what you're doing. You have to look at, it's not just about shiny floors and nice buildings. There's lots of aspects that are considered when they're doing, they're doing awards and categories. And And I think that, high profile garages are high profile because they get themselves out there and they become known and people are aware of them. But I don't think it really impacts the ability to win awards. I think, there's a lot of garages that sort of sit, fairly quietly and don't shout about things. But entering awards is their opportunity to raise their profile and to start talking about what they do, because there's various different ways that you can use an award final to benefit your business. It's not always about customers. It's not always about profile. There's lots of aspects that you can take from that.
Now, we've touched upon this already. There's lots of awards out there. Is it a case of entering them all, or should we be more selective about it?
Yeah, there are a lot of awards out there, and there are, some people feel that it discredits, some of the big awards, that there are so many. But I think if you actually, apply some business logic to it, it gives an opportunity for marketing, regardless of what the award is. There are obviously awards that are more high profile. When you look at things like Top Garage, that's been going around, a long time. IAAF is quite a big award. The IGA is quite, big awards. And I think that, there are lots of them. I think people have to realise that there is quite a lot of work that goes into submissions on some of the awards. Some are easier than others. I have personal views in terms of which ones are the best. But to win an award is to win an award. It doesn't actually matter, because it gives you an opportunity to think about what impact that is on your team, what impact that is on your customers, what impact that is on recruitment, and all of these things, mold together to create that benefit. So, we enter. I think we've done 3 this year, 3 different awards this year. They do take time, so you need to commit some time to it. But just if you're thinking about doing something, you're thinking about entering one, just do one. Just enter one award, because like I said, sat around a table with the Garage Hive team looking at what's going on in the industry, that got me thinking, maybe we could win an award. So if you don't want to enter an award just yet, just buy a seat, buy a ticket, go on your own, force yourself to go and talk to the garage that's next to you, and you never know what will come from that.
So how do you capitalise on the opportunity that awards bring to your business?
I think you've got to celebrate it internally, first of all. So you've got to make sure that the team, I always make sure that when we've been at an awards, they are the first people to hear whether we've won or we've not won. We use it as an opportunity to take different individuals to the awards. We don't generally go as a big group, because I'll be honest, it is very expensive and it's quite disruptive to the business. But we normally take 1 or 2 people with us, and that's a way to give them a little bit of reward. So we use that as an incentive. I think, from a customer point of view, you've got to tell them, we use PR as one means, as you know, as one means of communicating to our customer base. But, press do like stories. It's got to be structured in the right way. But let's be honest, there's nothing easier for a journalist than something that arrives and ready to go, is there? So it's that, utilising that to push out. I get lots of comments from people in our town, oh, I've seen you being in the paper again. Well done. And it's, to me, it's sort of, it's a really nice way of sort of acknowledging that it's recognised and it's seen. So it's about, the awareness that sort of creates as well. So I think, you've just, ultimately, you've got to tell people that's what it boils down to. You've got to tell people, you've got to tell your customers, you've got to tell potential new customers, and you've got to tell the wider community. And that's what we make sure we do particularly when we win, but we also talk about it when we got to a final as well.
As a journalist, I have to pick up on the point you made about local papers there. Now, I've spent some time in a distant past now working for a local paper, and I can confirm they are desperate for local human interest stories and a local business that's been nationally recognised against others within their industry, especially if you have that photo of the award handover. It just ticks all the boxes for local papers. Write it up correctly, package it together in such a way that makes their journalist's job easy, and you can almost guarantee coverage. That's free advertising.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that again, it's having that knowledge and that skill, and to know how to structure an article and how to capture that information. But you've just hit the nail on the head. Make it about people, make it about local, and the likelihood is that they will cover it. I think we've every award win. I think we've had coverage in our local paper. Could I? If I was buying that advertising, it'd be very expensive, to go and buy that space. And we've had half page spreads for pretty much every article relating to this that we pushed into them. So it really does help to get your sort of knowledge and awareness, because you have to remember with marketing, it's not always about the instant impact. It's about long term. So when somebody's looking for a change or they have a disappointing experience, who do they think of? And they think of the garages that are most known for doing good things. And that's what we try and use it for.
Any thoughts on mistakes that can be made while entering awards?
Yeah, I think that's a difficult one to answer, because you've got, I don't see what other people submit. So I don't know what mistakes people are making. But I know one thing that, a lot of people don't do is that if you just think about it and you don't do the submission, you're never going to win anything, so you're never going to get in with that chance of doing it. So I think, whilst this isn't directly about entering awards in terms of what mistake is made, but the mistake for me is that they don't enter in the first place. Because if you don't enter, you don't even get the chance for a feedback, you don't get the chance for looking at the process and what's involved. And, some of the questions that they ask you are really quite in-depth. And if nothing else, that gets you thinking about what you do. And surely that's got to be an opportunity to develop.
Absolutely. It's the taking part that counts, right, Tim? No, really, it's the process, and seeing it as an opportunity to continually improve your business. That's something we touched upon a couple of episodes ago now, I think, with Hayley Powers and Andy Crook on award entries. Why is it so important to measure yourself against others, and where do you start when it comes to benchmarking?
It's because it's really important, because it's about creating a better business for everybody within it, and that's from the whole community that rolls around Oldfields. Is you've got your staff, so you've got the staff first of all. So it's really important that you think about what other people are doing to help their team. A lot of things like this are around sort of training and development and investment in tooling and stuff like that. So it gives you an opportunity to look at what other people are doing on that respect. Then it's looking at, what services and what things you've got that are open to the market. Where do things come down the line? Are you going to look at ADAS? Are you going to look at these sorts of things? So you're seeing what other people are doing. And it doesn't mean you have to copy everything that people are doing. But if you can just get a view of and take the bits that you think, sits with what you're doing and how you want to operate as a business, it's a really good opportunity to see what's going on and what's out there. Because the way that we've pitched our business is that my direct competition isn't necessarily other independent garages in the area. We're competing against the main dealers effectively, and let's be honest, at the moment they're fighting back, aren't they? They're trying to build, they're trying to pull their customers back in that they've been losing to independents. Not just like my garage, but like other garages, and but it's seeing what's happening gives you the opportunity to look at what you're doing and how you can make the improvements and what you can do, within your business. Not always about spending huge amounts of money. It's about listening and seeing what's happening and how you can improve what's happening in process.
Events like the Blend are great for speaking to other garage owners, but when it comes to main dealers, and I know there are a lot of independents that, like you, are pitching themselves against the main dealers. How do you benchmark against these guys?
You can do lots of things. James Dillon talks about a digital drive-by, which I really like that phrase, because you can see what people are doing online. It's all very open now. So you can take that aspect, you can see what offers and what deals and how they're pitching their business. But I think, go into a dealership, experience it, see what actually happens, and how you feel, because there's lots of people who are really quick to sort of say how terrible dealers are and all the rest of it. But there is some things that they do really well, and we can learn from it. We can learn as independents. We changed our reception from being not a priority within our business to a real priority on the basis of going in and seeing what you see when you go into a dealer. So it's that sort of, not trying to mimic them, but trying to make it feel familiar. Because if you're trying to target that customer, you've got to think, what is it that when they walk in, how are they going to feel? It's not actually that much different to what we've been used to.
For garages that are already busy, Tim, just keeping up with customers, what's the first simple step they can take to start making themselves award ready?
Yeah, I think that if you're busy, it's quite a normal thing for people to to think, well, I don't really need to do this type of work. I don't need to do EVs. I don't need to do fleet work. I don't need to do this. I've got plenty of customers already, and I'm really busy. And I get that, but you've just got to think about what about what's next, and have you got a customer base that's aging? In which case, what's going to happen when they go? How do you appeal to the younger people? How do you put yourself in the frame to be seen by these people? So I think, you've just got to take that step where I would say the first step you take is to actually look at your business and look at, step back from the I'm in it now to take a helicopter view. What does it actually look like? How does it actually feel to a customer? And think about that as the first part of the process. But I would say, to be honest, it goes beyond that. It goes before that. Go out to an award event, just book a ticket, spend £100 or whatever it is to go and sit in a room with people and see what happens and see how it feels and how that makes you feel as part of the industry. And I know right at the beginning, I think you talked in one of the other podcasts about imposter syndrome with some of the females within that panel discussion. It is perfectly normal to feel out of control with that environment if you're not used to it. But you only get used to it if you expose yourself to it, and you've got to do that thing in the first place.
So far, I've been chatting about industry awards, but I know you've won a couple of local awards recently too. Tell us more about those and where other garages should be looking to identify their local awards.
Yeah, so local awards. So the one that we've won last year was the college, Hereford Ludlow North Shropshire College Apprentice Employer of the Year. So that was that was about really, I submitted ourselves as a possibility, but you're then competing against apprentices from all over, the different trades and the different skill sets. So that was a really good one to win. But what I did with that was actually start to tag the college into things that we were doing and make sure that they were aware. And when we then, got submitted and we got shortlisted for it, I didn't realise the impact that had along the way, because I got some feedback when we did actually win it that we were head and shoulders with everyone else, and I can't think of any other reason why we would be head and shoulders above some of the other businesses that I know, other than we told them what we're doing, and I think that had an impact. And Owen was the Apprentice of the Year, so that was 2024, so last year. So it was so that was what we were doing. But I think next year for us, we are going to be looking at some of the local awards. So look at the business awards to see what it is that's going on in the area. There'll typically be 2 or 3 that run in your county. Look at those. I think for me, it's looking at what they do for marketing, because of course you can leverage. Not only is it about you submitting stuff to the press, but you can leverage what other people are doing by being in that frame and tagging, copying, making sure they're aware of it. It's really important.
What do you hope delegates will take away from your session at the Blend?
It's really that it isn't scary. Just put yourself out there. You've done that if you've gone to the Blend. Think about awards as being the same thing. There's a lot of benefit you can have from attending, and really this is an opportunity to learn about what I've done. And it doesn't mean you have to follow that process, but you've got a framework that I know works because I've done it, 7 times. I'm just going to announce now that for anybody that does attend our session or my session, I'm going to be offering a day's consultancy to actually go in and look at their garage. They've got to be in our presentation because I'll be taking details, and I'll go and look at their business, with a set of fresh eyes, and I'll do that free of charge, as part of the thing. So I've thrown that one out there. So Dean, I'll have to get his prizes sorted.
Take that, Dean. What does that consultancy look like? Just very briefly, if you could.
Yeah, so effectively what I'll do is the things that we'll be talking about at the blend in terms of putting yourself in the frame, I'll actually go and have a look with them within their business, spend a day there, giving some tips and advice based on what we've done, and then anything else that we can sort of see around that might help improve their processes. So it's really about their business, going there and spending a day to get to see what happens and how it works, and how we could help develop that for them.
Separately, you're also appearing on a panel discussion at the blend too. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Am I right? Because Ellen will kill me.
Yes.
No, that's my standard response. I haven't got a clue what's going on, Mike. No. The idea of the discussion on the Ben discussion with Ellen and a couple other people on a panel is really about how you can think about your own business and the resource that Ben provide, and how you can integrate that to what you're doing as a business. So that's the angle that we're sort of working with on that particular panel discussion. But the idea is that we try and actually give some practical examples. So it isn't, just a marketing thing for Ben. This is about giving practical examples on what's possible, what's available, and what we've done. So it's really trying to sort of break down the confusion about what Ben do, what workplace wellbeing is, and really look to give some value to the people that are sat in the audience. That I think we all think the people that know about Ben and what they do and wellbeing within the workplace, we all think that everybody knows, but it's just not true, is it? You've got to really think about the cost of ignoring wellbeing, looking at what you can invest in that as a business and how you invest in it, and also how you can support the one charity that only dedicates itself to automotive.
That wellbeing message is so important, isn't it?
Yeah, I think everybody wants to feel sort of looked after and cared for, and we're really lucky to have Ben within automotive. I don't know if this is the same across other trades, because I don't operate in those businesses, but it certainly feels like it's quite unique, and it has an impact. It has a big impact on what you can do in the business. Without, I don't want to blow some of the stories that we're going to talk about, but it's we've had an individual within our business that's had a big impact trying involvement with Ben, and they won't mind talking about it, because I think they're going to do something with Ben later on as well. So it's it's just making sure that people know that it's available. You can't ignore well-being, in a current modern business, because it's so important. People are different now to they were 20 years ago, and we understand more about well-being now as a society, and that's why it's important to consider that and what you can do with it.
We'll look forward to hearing much more from you at the Blend, Tim, in both your presentation and during your Ben panel.
Yeah, thanks so much. Cheers, Mike. Thank you.
As always, thanks so much for listening to the Blend podcast, and we'll be back with another episode very soon. But just before I disappear, here's a quick reminder that tickets for the Blend happening in Birmingham on Saturday the 18th of October are almost gone. So if you haven't yet got yours, now is the time to get them before they sell out. Head over to the Blend website to get them now, and we'll see you in Birmingham.